Welcome back. If you're just joining us, it's Daybreak on Trust Television, and it's that segment where we'll bring you the stories that made it to the front page of select national newspapers this morning. We begin with the Daily Trust. And the Daily Trust is staying with events from the International Labour Day. Labour to federal government on Workers' Day. Pay us 615,000 minimum wage or face shutdown. Demand electricity tariff reversal. We are considering a living wage, and that's coming from the president, and governors promise better welfare for workers. And two other stories there on the front page. Fuel scarcity, go after saboteurs. Reps tell security agencies. You'll find the details of that on page 23. Naira devaluation, biggest mess of 2023. This is coming from Africa's richest man. Again, Aliko Dangote. And Cocoa Dow Gold in Taraba as buyers overwhelm farmers. I hope the buyers are Nigerians anyway. Two other stories. Farmers, headers sign peace pact in Southwest. Pregnant woman decries high cost of Medicare and baby essentials. I mean, it's safe to say that giving birth to children is a very expensive venture these days. Arrested ASP, rescued kids handed over to police in Sokoto. And that's it on the front page of the Daily Trust this morning. Moving on to The Guardian. It's leading also with a story from Labour. Labour demands inflation-proof pay. Frequent wage review. It's safe to say every time there is a review, they should just peg it above the inflation rate, which in Nigeria today currently stand at 33% or 40% for food inflation, if you like. To other stories, PDP chides Aiyedatiwa for budgeting 5 billion to renovate daycare centers. I mean, what can I say? Workers wary as FG assures on May 1 date for new minimum wage. That's strange. All right. Duty exchange rate, fueling uncertainty, adjusted 28 times in 2024 first quarter, says the Center for Policy and Economics. And PDP rallies aggrieved members target 2027 presidency. 10 years after, the shame of Chibok lingers on the government. And that's reviewing the plight of the Chibok girls. All right, we would now come back to the studio where we already have joining us Malam Nasri Lawal, the editor-in-chief of Dateline newspaper. It's a pleasure to have you join us this morning.
Good morning. It's good to be here.
Good to have you, and I bet that whenever Abdul shows up from wherever he has gone, he would explain this billing this morning. Yesterday was Workers' Day, even though there are not usually days that the average journalist look forward to because you are at work to tell the story. Yes. I mean, but Labour is insisting on 650 or nothing, and they are also giving an ultimatum that should happen before the month end or nothing. I'm not sure whether you got to listen to the Director General of the Nigerian Employers Consultative Association, who said should all parties be willing to understand the position of every party, that they can sort this out in 1 week. But what do you make of this 650,000 naira demand? Does it feel like a child's play, or you think this is realistic, considering the whole talk about how this government is near bankrupt and all?
Honestly, we should know that there are so many people that are part of this arrangement, so to say. It's not only the federal government, we also have the state governments, we also have private employers. So when you have a minimum wage, it's not going to be, just for the federal workers or just for state workers, and on the other hand, or for private sector employees. So what I'm trying to say is, honestly, 615,000 naira, taking into consideration the fact that so many state governments are either unable to pay the current minimum wage, which is 30,000 naira, or are even unable to pay salaries, as a whole. So if you say 615,000 naira, honestly, I don't know how many states in Nigeria will be able to, to pay this amount. Maybe what the Labour should do, I saw it in one of the newspapers you reviewed, that's from The Guardian, also suggesting something that has to do with inflation. Like if you take Turkey into consideration, for instance, that's what they do. In Turkey, the minimum wage is always pegged around the inflation. So if the inflation is high, it goes up. And when it is down, so that way you will be able to do so many things. But right now, let's even assume that the federal government or the state governments or all the employers can afford to pay 615,000 naira. The first thing that will happen is the price of goods and essentials in the market will also skyrocket, because you are talking about inflation. Once there is this amount of money, in the hands of workers, chasing fewer goods, certainly the inflation rate will also go up. So that's what maybe the Labour should do. They shouldn't just be talking about the minimum wage, even though some will say, in dealing with the government, Labour knows, the best way to go about that. And probably because this is the only language, that the government understands, all the threats and what have you. But they should also rethink the strategy so that going forward, it's not only the pay that you get at the end of the day that matters. We should also think about the healthcare quality we get from our hospitals, the schools, and other security arrangements and what have you. It shouldn't just be about the minimum wage.
All right. And then we saw that celebration yesterday. And that left a number of people asking, where exactly is the president? It's his first May Day since assuming office. There are no stories of his returning to the country or where he has president. Why should we have a president and we cannot account for every day? His location every day. You think that is not important?
Well, it's important even for the symbolism part of it, because, you are talking about the Nigerian workers, and I think the best person to be there is the president. But I wouldn't want to say the president deliberately, refused to be available for this. I know the last time he was in Saudi Arabia for the World Economic Forum. Probably he's still engaged in other, things that have to do with the fate of Nigeria and Nigerians. But honestly, like you said, I think they have missed out on the symbolism, for the president to be there, to get to speak to Nigerian workers, like directly without any form of intervention. Because right now, we rely on statements from spokespersons and what have you.
That's true. All right, talking about things that affect us directly here. A pregnant woman is decrying the high cost of Medicare and baby essentials. It's amazing. Somebody told me yesterday in the newsroom, he walked in and said, I used to get this pain, and I would take these simple supplements of about 1,500, and it disappears within 24 hours. I walked into the shop yesterday only for the price tag to change from 1,500 to 11,000. And you can begin to imagine what that means for child care, for all of those pills during antenatal, and of course even after they had given birth. What does this woman's statements signpost for us as a people, as a society?
Well, when so many countries are battling with low birth rates, not even having what people call the replacement rates. Here in Nigeria, that's not the problem. The problem is actually
high birth rate.
High birth rate, and then the ability of even the parents to take care of their children, especially at this formative stage. But, there was a time the president, with the Minister of Health and Social Development, when they met in Abuja and they discussed about the need to have to lower the price of drugs especially. But honestly, unless they do that, like the last time you see so many of these companies even leaving Nigeria. And when in reality we can even force them to come back, because Nigeria is a big market. If you look at our population, you know, even if it is just some small dose of Panadol that you sell in Nigeria, you are likely to get, you know, enough money. So Nigeria should also make that as part of the bargain, so that all these companies that are operating from abroad, you know, to come and set up their facilities here, so that, you know, at least we will get to reduce some of the expenses that we face.
All right, another story that made it to the front page this morning, clearly or justifiably so, is the issue around fuel scarcity. And the rep members here are telling security agencies to go after saboteurs, and I'm wondering if it is indeed about saboteurs or about a complete failure of supply chain infrastructure. If we have to rely on a sole importer, which in itself is government, if you like, how then can you guarantee efficiency in supply? Whatever it's available, it's whatever it's available. But what do you think we can do, you know, to completely break this cartel, break this cycle, what appears to be a vicious cycle in our own case that never goes away?
Well, first, let me start by saying that the reps maybe should just direct their attention at the government, because the government is, you know, solely responsible for this. If you listen to what the marketers are saying, and the fact that NNPC is virtually the lone ranger in that regards, you know, they are the ones behind. Well, we are talking about also Dangote refinery coming on stream, and possibly some other modular refineries. When they decided to remove subsidy on petroleum products, you know, the first thing they told us was that these products are likely to be available because of, you know, when the money is like deregulated, people now have the chance to bring in their products and sell at their own prices to be determined by the market. But this is not the case. This is not what we have been seeing. Right now, you pay higher, and then that's when you are able to get the fuel. To be sincere, last night in Abuja, I saw so many filling stations now selling, but the queues are still there. And they are saying they are trying to make it an emergency situation so that they will be able to clear the queues from the filling stations. But going forward, unless you are able to handle this supply chain, you know, we'll just be going in a circle, because right now people in Sokoto and in other far, you know, states are paying over 2,000 naira, you know, to buy a liter of petrol, and people have to move. It's not something that you will say, okay, I will remain in my house
and wait for when the prices recede.
It's not possible. So the government should also take a look at this so that they can take care of the situation.
Interesting. And away from some of these economic issues, we've dealt on quite a number of them. It's the Guardian reporting this morning that some PDP elders have started making moves towards reconciliation ahead of 2027. Do you think it is too early in the day? I mean, we saw how a PDP divided against itself became its own albatross in the last election. Well, what are the chances that some of these so-called elders would leave the space for some fresh mind or innovative minds to come in and try to move that party forward as we used to know it?
Honestly, that's what the party should be concerned about. Just last week, is it even 2-3 days back, the ANC in South Africa celebrated 30 years, you know, in power. And so when the then, is it chairman or even the president that said the PDP will be in power for 60 years, they couldn't do that. Some even said no, they meant 16 years because that's what they ended up spending, and giving the stage to the APC. But honestly, I think it's not late. Actually, this is even the right time for them to start thinking of what to do ahead of the 2027 election. They have their members, they have their elected party members in so many positions. You know, the way they're able to comport themselves and work for Nigerians will also, give them like an advantage. It's not like a new party that is trying to make an impression. But like you said, honestly, the old politicians should also give a chance to the new ones, the upcoming ones, or they team up so that they can be able to make like a strong front against the APC, because anytime the government is in power, they have so many things at their disposal. So trying to like take power away from them is not something that you can do easily. Okay. So unless they come together to form a formidable team, I don't see them making any impact.
All right, one last thought from you before we go this morning, and that will be on the comment of Alhaji Aliko Dangote. It was yesterday that I was looking at figures that suggest that over 800 billion was lost by manufacturers and some banks to the whole mess around the Naira devaluation. What took them by surprise, clearly. What do you make of his picking up to this challenge?
Well, if Dangote is saying this, you can imagine what people at the lower ranks of the
manufacturing chain
will be talking about. Right now, we're even talking about electricity. For instance, you have band A, you have band B. How do you expect? So many people are now like resigning to fate. They don't even make use of electricity. I went to a house yesterday, and the person was telling me that look, anytime from 6 a.m. until 6 p.m. in the night, in the evening, nobody owns the electricity and what have you, because you can't be spending 50,000 naira just to have like 200 or so units of electricity. And something that you used to have when you pay 10,000 naira, you get 187 units or so. But right now, 10,000 naira can only get you 40 units. And you want people to remain in business. These people cannot continue. And if they cannot continue, even what revenue the government is getting is likely to disappear.
Absolutely. And what a fitting note to bring this conversation to a close. We have been talking with the editor-in-chief of Deadline newspaper, Malam Nasru. It's a pleasure to have you join us again in the studio this morning.
Thank you. Always
all right.
good to be here.
Thank you. This is where we draw the curtain for today's edition of the program. Like I did promise with him, I'm sure when Abdullahi shows up, he would explain whatever it is that kept him away from the show. It could be one of those Nigeria's problems. You can bet on it. I'm Sunday Michael Ogu. It's been a pleasure have you give us free access to your living room. We will do this again tomorrow. Sports 360 is next at the top of the hour.